Greetings, everyone. My name is Tim Southam. I'm the president of the Directors Guild of Canada. I'm just going to try to get us into a mode where I can actually read my notes. There we go. Welcome to the DGC's Health and Welfare Plan COVID-19 update. I'm the National President of the Directors Guild of Canada. My name is Tim Southam. Today we're gathering to discuss what the DGC Health Plan can do for you, the member, during the COVID-19 crisis, and to provide answers to important questions we've heard from members. First, a few words about who manages the plan for you, and then we'll get straight to the most urgent questions. As you know, the health plan is ours alone at the DGC. It's for our members only and our dependents where applicable. It's tailored to our needs. This is fascinating. I keep getting sent into full screen mode, which then obliterates my notes. Welcome to the era of Zoom. So hopefully we won't manipulate the panel, the slides anymore until I've finished my notes. Then we can get on to our actual expert panel, unlike me. So as you know, it's ours, it's our plan. It's tailored to our needs and the people who work in film. It's administered by a trust, and the trust consists of myself as a trustee, 3 officers, and the 4 of us are elected across the country by you. The trust also includes the chair of each of the district councils in the country, also elected by you, and our national executive director, David Forget. We work for you. We are you when we are in this sort of ongoing dialogue with our insurance company. We're their client. To do that, we rely heavily on the expert participation of our national staff and also district council staff, whom you can call anytime or write to anytime. It's actually better to write right now during this crisis. You'll get an answer. And to make it even easier to help you and to help us deal with the challenges of administering this plan and also interacting with our insurance company, we have 3 outside consultants, and they're each an expert in their own areas. And Brian Baker, who's the chair of the Health and Welfare Trust, will introduce you to our expert panelists as we go. COVID-19 is a crisis for us as members and presents unique challenges to your guild. The health plan is no exception. Luckily, we're here to tell you that for 2021, the risks to the health plan are low, and the risks to you in terms of loss of coverage are also low. The plan enters the crisis in very robust shape. On the one hand, many feel it's an excellent plan. Few health plans in the Canadian film industry offer the range and quality of benefits to as many members. We'll give you a very quick snapshot of these benefits as we also answer some of the pressing questions you've raised. The plan itself is in good health. Thanks to a decision by trustees made many years ago, the plan maintains a year's worth of insurance premiums in reserve. So the plan is currently in great financial shape for 2021. Our total expenses per year are approximately $20 million, and our available reserves right now are in the order of $33 million. In addition to those 2 realities, because reserves are precisely for crises like the one we're in, your current trustees have committed to keeping the plan intact for our members and to use the 1-year reserve to do so if necessary. And it gets us well into the next year as well. So that's 2021 and a piece of 2022. We can answer most questions relating to 2020 and 2021 with a great deal of certainty because of these reserves. For 2022, we have many answers, but we don't have all of them yet because we don't know how long the COVID-19 crisis will last. And to that end, we'll be in ongoing contact with you as we learn more about what's happening to our members as we try to reboot our sort of our production sector and re-enter the workforce. For 2022, we also don't have all the answers because we don't control everything. To give you but 2 examples, while we're a persuasive lobby, we don't control rule changes by the government, and we don't control long-term plan changes made by insurance companies. But I can assure you that the trust is vigilant, well-informed, and well-equipped in our national staff to take on both those factors. So we're optimistic, especially given the kind of the current outlook and attitude of the various governments at every level in Canada, that we're going to be in a sort of a collaborative mode going into 2022. And depending on the severity or the ongoing severity of the crisis, we feel optimistic that we can provide solutions. But we'll keep you fully posted on how that goes. So today, we've had several questions loud and clear from everyone, and we want to hit those right away. Then we'll look at the services that we believe could be useful to you during this crisis before we answer even more of the questions you've sent in by mail, and also questions we hope you will write into the Q&A function here on Zoom. And there'll be a little bit more information about how to do that from our team as we go along. To give you really precise answers to these questions, I'd like to invite our team led by Brian Baker, whom many know very well, to take over the session, and I'll be back with you near the end. Thanks so much. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Tim. I'm so glad that so many of you could make it today. We currently have 213 people online with us, and the numbers keep rising as we go. So before we start, I just want to take a minute to explain exactly how to ask questions. Somewhere on your screen, and it depends on the kind of device that you're using, you'll see a Q&A button. Some of you, it might not be visible for some of you, and depending on the device, and if you have a mouse on a computer, you may have to hover somewhere over your screen for it to pop up. So in that Q&A session, there's a Q&A box there. You have the ability to write in your questions as you think of them, anytime at all during the course of this presentation. We'll be monitoring them, and we'll endeavor to answer them at an appropriate moment. Many of you have also sent us questions in advance. We've compiled them, and we'll answer many of them today. We did get a lot. I want to tell you, we got a lot of personal questions and questions asking us how the plan works. Today's forum, this is not really the appropriate forum for that. Someone from the staff will contact you to answer your questions if you've asked personal questions. And we will also, especially if the demand is there, hold another town hall in a few weeks on understanding how your benefits work. So first of all, here's how we're going to proceed for the next hour or so. Firstly, I'll read and then answer the #1 question that we've been getting the most. After that, we have some important information that we want to share with you. And once that's done, our expert panel will answer the other questions that we've already received, as well as the questions that you ask as we go along today. So the question that is on most people's minds is the following: what will happen to their coverage level next year when they've not been able to work this year because of the lockdown? The short answer to that question is, for the vast majority of you, the lockdown will not have any negative influence on the calculation of your coverage level for 2021. I'll go into detail on that, and here's exactly why that's going to be true. Your coverage level for a given plan year, which a plan year is from January 1st to December 31st, is based on the total of your producer contributions for 24 months, starting, this is where it gets tricky, 2 years and 6 months before the plan year in question starts, and ending 6 months before the plan year starts. Okay, I know that was probably incomprehensible, but that's why we've got a PowerPoint here for you today. So I'm going to give you an example. For the 2021 plan year, the trust will look at your producer contributions, and if you're in Quebec, sometimes you get member contributions on non-US productions. We'll look at your producer contributions from July 1st, 2018, right up until June 30th, 2020. And depending on the amounts, you'll be slotted in either level 1, level 2, or 3. You can see from the graphic with the piggy banks that in this 24-month period, only 3.5 months of no work will be part of the calculation. if you're still not sure if your coverage level will be negatively affected from the lack of work, I now want to show you how you can personally calculate roughly what your level will be in 2021. I'm just waiting for the next slide. Okay, so if you take a look at this slide and you see the numbers, the numbers on it, the dollar numbers attached. Take them with a grain of salt. This is just for an example, because they're approximate. What they're based on producer contributions of 5% of gross salary, because in most cases, in most productions, that is how much the producers contribute to the health plan. Now, the exceptions are if you work mainly in the lower tiers, the percentage of producers pay is less. And as well, if you're in BC, or if you're working in BC, the contribution is often 4% plus $12 a day for most levels. And that often comes sometimes close to 5%. So that's sort of why we use the 5% number. And don't forget, if you're a life member and you have absolutely no earnings, you automatically receive the life member coverage. So with the caveat that I just mentioned concerning those numbers, if in the period from July 1st, 2018 until June 30th, 2020, if you've earned more than a total of $4,280 combined for 2 years, you'll be given level 1 coverage. If you've made more than $21,600, you'll get level 2. And if you've made $59,980 in gross salary, you will get level 3 coverage. And just for your information, the majority of DGC members are in level 3, which is of course the highest level. Now, if you're not sure about your income during that time period, and you really want to know what your level will be in 2021, please contact us. Our staff will be happy to do the calculation for you. That's the first question. We'll come back. I'll come back in a few minutes to the other questions. But first, we want to share with you some important information. We all know that along with this virus, the lockdown, all the uncertainty about the future, all this is resulting in a lot of us are suffering from anxiety, depression, and loneliness. To that end, I really want to remind you of the resources that are available to you through our health plan. For the majority of you, our health plan is about medication, dental, and paramedical services, like massage, physio, chiro, et cetera, et cetera. However, you should be aware that it offers a lot more. I want to zoom in particularly to the Members Assistance Program, mental health services, and addiction treatment. You can see on this slide all the different things that we offer in the health plan. And of course, it is dependent on your coverage level, with the one exception of the Members Assistance Program that's available free of charge to every member, even if you're not covered by the health plan at all. So what I would like to do at this point is I'd like to invite Harwinder Ahluwalia from Morneau Shepell to explain to us exactly how it works and how to access the benefits that are available under the MAP program. Harwinder?
Thank you, Brian, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope that everyone is safe and healthy. We are living in interesting times right now, and it's important to know the supports and resources that you all have available through your Member Assistance Program, also known as MAP. Your Member Assistance Program, your MAP, provides counseling and work-life services that are available in 8 modalities. And the 8 modalities include, of course, everyone is familiar with in-person, which due to the lockdown is not available at the moment. However, the services are available in other alternate modalities that include telephonic, video counseling, which kind of acts like an in-person, but only using technology to meet with a counselor, as well as e-counseling online. So you can imagine any digital modality or telephonic modality, you still have access to the counseling services. As Brian mentioned, it is a free resource. It is completely free to visit with a counselor. The services are short-term and goal-oriented counseling for anything related to work, health, or life issues. So whether your needs are concerning relationship or family matters, or personal, emotional, whether it's physical health, grief support, or challenges or counseling related to anxiety or depression, you can access us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by phone or through our online portal, which is workhealthlife.com. Again, that is workhealthlife.com. It's important to note that all of the sessions are 100% confidential within the limits of the law. And there are actually 2 resources that I personally would like to share with you or remind you. The first one, as I mentioned, is through our workhealthlife.com, which is the website where we store hundreds of articles and toolkits. And if we can go back to the previous slide, please. So there are hundreds and hundreds of articles that you can access through the workhealthlife.com, which are for day-to-day challenges such as childcare, elder care, nutrition. But more importantly, there are valuable resources and toolkits available on specifically COVID-19. The global outbreak of COVID-19 has many of us feeling powerless and overwhelmed, and May is also a mental health awareness month or a week. So what we've done on the workhealthlife.com is launched a microsite which is titled A Stable Mindset in an Unstable World. So there are clinically screened articles and videos as well as infographics for you to explore and understand things like how to protect your mental health while staying informed, as well as look at tips on managing anxiety and much more. The other service that I'd like to highlight within your member assistance program, which you may or may not be familiar with, is lift sessions. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of walking. Of course, we all need to keep physically active, and walking is one of those great things. But the program also includes lift sessions, which is automated fitness videos, which are a great way to de-stress yourself as well as let your endorphins kick in. So if you haven't used it already, the lift sessions include 30-minute workout videos, which is 3 times a week, and you don't need any special equipment or a home gym. You can use your body weight to exercise and follow the videos along. The COVID-19 pandemic has, disrupted lives and livelihood of more broadly and more quickly than anything in recent memory. And the top concern impacting mental health of the Canadians through this pandemic or around this pandemic is finances. So know that member assistance program includes financial counseling. It's a resource to help manage your finances better. However, I also wanted to remind you about Actors Fund of Canada, which is a charitable organization that provides emergency financial aid to workers in entertainment industry. AFC has very close ties with the DGC, and the DGC is a major donor to this organization. So those requiring emergency financial aid know that AFC can be considered for those reasons. Next, I'd like to highlight or provide information on a free resource that Morneau Chappelle has made available, and that is WellCan. So on the next slide, you'll see an information on the WellCan free app, which is a collection of digital resources and supports that are available to all Canadians. And what you'll see on the right is a screenshot of that app. It's a free download on your device, whether you're on Apple device or Android. It is downloadable through the App Store. And not only you can peruse through different articles which are up to date and provided, there are tweets from the Government of Canada, but it also allows you to complete assessments. And these are quick assessments that can be done by yourself on depression, general anxiety, alcohol use, or drug abuse. And depending on how you respond or how you answer to the questions, there are additional resources that are made available to you to help support with your needs. Again, this is an absolutely free resource available to all Canadians, whether you're participating in the Member Assistance Program or not. So I would encourage you to share this with family, friends, relatives, neighbors, a great resource that can be accessed at no charge. Next couple of things I'd like to highlight is free webinars. Now, in response to COVID-19, our team made available 4 free videos that specifically talk about topics that are brought on or that our clients or our participants were inquiring about. The first one is, what is coronavirus? And here, this video is a 10-minute long session, which goes into the symptoms of COVID-19. It talks about the spread of the virus as well as prevention tools. Next video is the emotional well-being during the COVID-19. And here it talks about why the outbreak affects our mental health or emotional health, as well as it provides practical skills to cope with anxiety and tips to you and your family. The next video is, again, talking about the virus with your children. And this one is how to recognize signs of anxiety in children. It offers concrete intervention strategies to reduce anxiety, as well as strategies for increasing resilience as a parent. We're also going to be starting talking about, when the lockdown lifts, there's an introduction to working remotely. So there's information on how to set boundaries between work and personal lives, as well as develop some effective communication strategies, which are, for virtual meetings or team meetings or networking. On the next slide, I'd like to talk about the COVID-19 toolkit, which is also available for all individuals. The outbreak of COVID-19 is absolutely stressful for a lot of us. And the fear of anxiety can be overwhelming. So here you can find some articles and, again, tips and resources on various different topics, which can be accessed through morneauchapelle.com. There are topics such as preparing to go back to the workplace again, as well as coping with loss and grief at work, or family violence, as well as keeping steady in uncertain times. And coping with loneliness. So there are great resources, once again, available on morneauchapelle.com if you wanted to access any of those resources. Again, all clinically screened articles. So you can be assured that the information that you receive or the information that you see on these websites are valid and are more current. The last one here is our Facebook Live page, which is hosted on Wednesdays of this month. These are Wellbeing Wednesdays, and you can access them. We're all on social media. We all have Facebook. But for those that do not have Facebook, again, know that you can still access them through the Work Health Life website. All of the live sessions are recorded. So for some reason, if you're unable to attend, you can still watch them after the fact, the recorded versions. There's information, or there are live sessions that are hosted on mental well-being, physical well-being, social well-being, and financial well-being. So you can access these on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. on Facebook when you go on LifeWorks page. And those are all the resources that you have available. If there are any questions, please, I encourage you to ask them, and I'll be more than happy to respond. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Harwinder. Before we move on, we're getting a lot of questions are coming in, and like I said before, we will get to them after we do the questions that we've got during the week. However, one came in just now that I think it's appropriate to answer right now, and the question is, will the PowerPoint, the notes be available after the Zoom call? And the answer is yes. We're recording this session, and the whole session is going to be available, will be available to you. So now last thing before we get to the questions is that we also thought you would like to know about some of the lobbying efforts that are being made on your behalf. Eckler Partners, who are our trust consultants and our actuaries, are members of an industry-wide lobby group called the Multi-Employer Benefit Plan Council of Canada. I've asked Charlene Milton from Eckler Partners to tell us what they're doing that could impact positively on our plan. So Charlene. You're muted, Charlene.
I was muted, sorry. Thanks very much for inviting me to take part in your town hall today. Hi, everyone. Yes, as Brian mentioned, there is a lobby group called, the acronym is MEBCO, Multi-Employer Benefit Council of Canada. And its sole purpose is to do lobbying work for multi-employer plans like your plan. And what it does is it puts forward ideas and suggestions to various government bodies, including finance, including health agencies, and so on, to do things that will assist the lives of individuals who are part of multi-employer plans, like the DGC Trust. So I wanted to talk to you about a couple of the lobbying efforts that are going on that will specifically help DGC members if the government decides to do something about it. As many of, we're getting many questions about this from all of our client groups, and it affects everybody across the country who has a healthcare spending account through their employer or member plan. And so what we've understood is that people are worried about having the full use of that spending account over the period of time it's intended to be used, which is 2 years. So MEBCO has lobbied the Finance Canada to ask for an extension of this 2-year period, so that once all of the providers get back to work and people can go see them, that there is sufficient time for people to be able to use the money that they've actually set aside for this purpose. So that's the first one, and a lot of you probably know this as the 2-year use it or lose it rule. That's the issue that we're talking about here. That's a Canada Revenue Agency rule. It's not a trust rule, and everyone who administers a healthcare spending account has to follow these rules. So the next item was MEBCO is also lobbying for the refund of money that has been put into a healthcare spending account. Under current rules, the money has to be used up on eligible healthcare expenses over the 2-year period. But understanding that a lot of people are without employment and income at this point in time, it may be nice to have money there to put aside to go to the orthodontist, but if you need to pay for your rent and that money's just sitting there, it doesn't really help you. So what we've also done is put forward the idea that the government allow refunds of these amounts for a limited period of time that would pay cash payments to assist members with other non-health related expenses that they have in their lives. So these requests went in about late March. There have been some discussions with finance about it. We know that this has come to the attention of the finance minister himself, so he's very much aware of it, and we're keeping in touch and hoping that either or both of these suggestions would be taken up. So thanks for that, Brian.
Thanks, Charlene. I'm just going to circle back to Harwinder's talking about the MAP program, because a couple of questions have come in, and so I thought we should maybe answer them because they were pertinent to what she said. And Harwinder, I don't know if you can see these questions, but someone is asking is, what is the link for the workouts that you were talking about? Can
yes.
can you give
Absolutely.
that? We can't put it on the screen right now. But can you give us that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is workhealthlife.com. And when you enter Work Health Life on a browser, you land on a landing page where it asks for your organization name. And what we require is members enter, Directors Guild of Canada or the trustees of the Directors Guild of Canada, and they're able to enter the website. They're able to browse all of the articles and access the resources on the Work Health Life. However, in order to initiate services, they will need to register, and the registration is required only once, and they'll just need to remember what their username and password is. in order to initiate a service. And alternatively, they can call the toll-free number and access the service through the toll-free number.
Thank you. Another question that came in. Is there an easier way to log on to the WorkLife website? When you're feeling very down or stressed out, the last thing you want is to try and find your ID name, your password, etc. The person is also making a comment that the website is also confusing, and this person gave up on it because of that. Can you give us any help there?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can understand, sometimes when you're only using the website maybe once or, with a long gap, remembering username and password is probably, not an easy thing. What I do recommend is there is a provision where you can actually save your username and password on the Work Health Life as well. So when you register, for the first time using your email address, you will have the provision for the computer to remember your username and password. Alternatively, you also have access to the toll-free number, which is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that is another way to access and to book service.
Thank you. Final question on this. Is the Work Health Life.com available to logbook? This is not for you, Harwinder. This is an internal one. But what members someone wants to know if it's available to logbook holders and permittees working towards membership. Andrea, could you answer this one?
Sure, Brian. I actually did type in a response. So permittee logbook holders are non-members here in British Columbia. So they're working their way towards membership, but at this time they don't have access to the member benefits that do exist. Here locally, we do send out an e-newsletter to those permittee logbook holders, probably 2 or 3 times a month, illustrating and letting them know about any sort of resources that are available to them through the government. And we do encourage them to reach out to us if there's anything that they desperately need. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So just finally, with regarding to lobbying, the DGC is doing DGC is doing some lobbying efforts with regards to the health plan too. So right now, what we are doing is we're making efforts to convince the Heritage Ministry to support group insurance plans. So I'd like to call on now Dave Forget, who is of course our National Executive Director, as well as being a trustee of the plan, to explain what we're doing with that regard. Dave?
Thank you very much, Brian. I guess it's a figure of speech to say nice to see you all. I can't see you all, but hope everyone is well and looking forward to seeing you all back at it in the near future. Yes, Brian, there's been a lot of work behind the scenes with government. In fact, I wrote up some notes this morning, and I won't say they're out of date, but there's already been modifications. Some of you may have heard Prime Minister Trudeau announce this morning an extension to the wage subsidy program. And there was also an announcement from the Minister of Heritage, Minister Guilbeault, about some targeted support for cultural industries, for arts communities and sport that they're going to be administering directly. So we'll be studying that as well. So good news on that front. In terms of advocacy initiatives, we've been active on a number of files, including the wage subsidy that I mentioned, the CER benefit, and the targeted support from Heritage. But for today's discussion, I wanted to focus on 2 places. And the first one, I was a little uneasy about including some of the work we're doing on the retirement saving plan, only because the topic for today was health and welfare. But I was pleased to see, because it was validating that among the Q&A questions in the lineup, there are questions that make reference to the pension plan and the RSP plan. So I feel that it's a good place to bring it up and share. As many of you know, the DGC, in partnership with IATSE, administers an RSP plan, CIRP, the Canadian Entertainment Industry Retirement Plan, on behalf of our members. Now, ideally, those contributions that come from producers when you're working, and by the way, also can come from you, because many of us make individual contributions to those plans too. Ideally, those contributions would remain in the plan until retirement, helping to ensure our members, when they reach the end of their working career, can retire in dignity. Unfortunately, the economic crisis, like the one we're in the middle of right now, has compelled some Canadians, including some of our members, to consider withdrawing their savings early, some or part of their savings early, which, by the way, can be accessed through CIRP, but only in cases, because these are mostly producer contributions, they can be accessed only in cases of extreme hardship. So there is a mechanism for doing that, but it's not open-ended. And of course, if you were to follow that path, it does imply that money that's withdrawn from your plan is not only gone from your plan, but is also subject to income tax in the year that you withdraw it, which has the effect of diminishing the value of the withdrawal. So there's lots of reasons why it's not ideal to go that route. But all that said, there's a reality here that we're all dealing with, which is the hardship for some of our members, which is in some cases more acute than others. So in thinking about this, the proposal that we've made, which has the backing of our partner in CIRP and as well as CIRP, and organizations like the Canadian Labour Congress, has been a temporary measure that we're proposing that essentially allows Canadians, well, obviously includes our members, but this would be available to any Canadian with a plan like this, to essentially borrow from their own plan. And those of you who are familiar with the Home Buyers Program or the Lifelong Learning, it's the same template. It's similar to those programs, and what it essentially does is allow you to make a loan to yourself, so to speak, from your retirement plan. And the provision would be that over time, and hopefully over time when the economy gets better and we all get back to work, that in the case of the home buyers plan, for example, the person has 15 years to restore those savings back to their plan. In doing so, of course, does two things. One is it avoids the tax implications. It basically lays them off into the future when ultimately you do retire and withdraw that money, once and for all. And it has the effect of allowing you the full value of the money in the year that you borrow it. This is a work in progress, of course, but it has been received by government, and they are, we continue to discuss it with them, and it's being reviewed at finance, and it's part of a number of proposals that they're considering. So there is an awareness at government with regard to allowing for some mechanism for pensions to be accessed. And I know in other jurisdictions, like Australia, for example, that has been the case. So that's the DGC's proposal, and we'll of course update you as soon as we get any news. The second one is one that's directly related to the health and welfare plan. Gig economy workers are particularly vulnerable to gaps in coverage for many programs, earning too much to qualify for government aid or subsidies, but often due to the cyclical nature of employment, our members might not qualify for or are unable to afford rising high healthcare premiums or high deductibles. Our members have mastered the art of living with uncertainty. However, there are new concerns now with regard to the potential impact on their health plans. So with that in mind, similar, and as Brian mentioned, similar to other government-funded emergency programs during the COVID crisis, we're proposing that the gap in contributions triggered by the shutdown of productions right across the country to health plans like ours that cover freelance workers in film and television production should be covered or in the form of some assistance directly from government. And it's based on the same principle as financial support that's provided through, say, for example, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy or the CERT program. So similar theme, helping to provide continuity and to to cover a gap that's been created in the system. So if you think of the other programs as wage replacement, this at a second level allows for support for your health plans and to allow the continuity in that as well. Providing emergency support for a union workers' health plan is a short-term relief measure that would relieve additional stress on already hard-hit industries like ours that run the risk of being stretched too thin. The common denominator of government emergency programs is to provide continuity, and we believe that it's a worthwhile initiative to support film and television workers, ensuring full and complete health coverage until the end of 2020. The second long-term positive effect of such a measure is to retain the talent pool. As the productions resume, there's no doubt that Guild members will be in high demand. Brian, those are our two proposals. Obviously, we're working with government on a number of fronts, but this one, once again, it's a work in progress, but we're going to continue talking to the Department of Heritage about opportunities to support our members through a wage replacement, or in this case, through support to their health plan. But thank you very much. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, a question came in while you were talking, and it's the following. In terms of lobbying for us, is anyone pursuing the CERB benefit being extended beyond June? Could you address that?
Well, one of the announcements this morning was precisely an extension of the wage subsidy benefit. So we know that that's on the government's radar. And I think, and yes, of course, we continue to talk to them and will intervene. There's a lot of talk about going back to work right now, just in general terms, and also, within our industry. But, we are all mindful that that has to be, and in fact, Prime Minister Trudeau, I was listening to his update this morning. He made reference to safety as being a priority as well. I think we all share that. So I think the timing on these programs is geared to a couple of things: the extent to which the government has the capacity, but also looking at the length of the call it this crisis period of the pandemic, and the extent to which some of these programs may need to be extended. I think there's an openness there. Obviously, not speaking for them, but the reality is they've already determined that one program that's providing this type of support needs to go a little bit longer. So we'll obviously, that's a great question, and we'll obviously continue that discussion with them to make sure that our members continue to get support until we can transition back into some version, I won't say some version of normal, because we all know that's not in the cards, but at least a version where people are working more regularly than they are now. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks. Another question has come in, and I think I can take this. Since we did Dave briefly mentioned the what we're doing on the RSP front. The question is, although it's not usually possible to withdraw the producer's contribution portion of a member's RSP, isn't it possible, if needed, to withdraw the position of the RSP that makes up the gains in the account, but not the principal? I'll answer that question because I am one of the 3 DGC staff or members that are on the Canadian Entertainment Industry Retirement Program, and the answer to that question is no. I've never even heard that before. But I do remind you that if you're in dire need, you can make an application, and I assure you the committee looks at every application quite seriously, and if you're in dire need, you will be able to withdraw part of your RSP savings. So anyways, let's get back now to the questions that you have submitted. And like I said, we're going to start with the ones that we've been collecting from the last week, and we sort of since we've sort of grouped them together, so we're going to answer them as one question in for each group. But let me introduce our panel of people who are very knowledgeable about the plan, who are going to answer the questions. You just saw Dave Forget, who is not only the National Executive Director, but is also a trustee on the plan. We have Trevor McFarland, who is a staff member, works for DGC National, and He, in fact, one of his major responsibilities is the health plan. Andrea Moore, who you just met a few minutes ago from the DGC BC office. Charlton Milton, who you saw again from Eckler Partners. Harwinder Aluwalia from Morneau Chappelle, who you've already met. And we also have Todd Rappett, who is the president and the owner of J&D Benefits, who is the administrator of our health plan. So like I said, here we'll start off with the questions that we've received, and keep asking questions on the Q&A part of this Zoom thing as you've been doing, and we will get to them. But again, please remember, we're concentrating only on questions related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're not going to answer any questions about the plan, how the plan works, unless there's a link or personal questions. So here are these. This is a summary of the kind of questions, or in fact, of all of the questions that we've got during the week, and I'll go through them one by one. And I want to start with answering the first question myself. How will this lockdown affect my future benefits after next year? And actually, Tim has I think, answered this question during his introduction, but I'll just repeat some of the things that he said. And really, the short answer is that we can't answer this question at this time. There's just too many unknowns. When will work resume? Will we need to shut down again? Will there be as much production as there was before the shutdown? Only time will tell. The good news is, and I think it's really worth repeating, as Tim has said, our finances are in excellent shape. And that has given us the ability to ride out this storm for really a fair bit of time, for at least a year, without the need to make any cuts in levels and benefits. And I think that's the most important message that we would like to send to you. Next question. Will we lose healthcare spending account money? This question has to do with the fact that healthcare spending account money needs to be used up in 2 years or it is lost. Some important medical services are not currently available right now, so it may be impossible to spend everything before the end of the year. Charlene, can you take this question? You're muted.
Sure will, Brian. Thank you. Sorry for the delay. So yeah, the healthcare spending account question is on a lot of people's minds. What I would like members to understand is that it's not expired. The healthcare spending account is not expiring soon. You still have the whole of 2020 calendar year to use the allocation that you actually made last year. And then also, if you've made an allocation to your healthcare spending account for 2020, you have until the end of 2021 to use up those funds. What might be confusing people a little bit, though, is that there is a deadline to submit the expenses that you incurred in the prior year. So you have 6 months in which to do that. So if anyone had a healthcare spending account expense in 2019, they need to get that in by the end of June of this year. Those deadlines are not being extended. But let's just take a sort of a graphic look at how the healthcare spending account allocations work. If we can go to the next slide. Thanks. So really the healthcare spending account, or HSA as we tend to call it, is a pot of money that can be put aside each year that you're allocating funds from your dollar bank for it. If you don't use the money that you've put aside, then the money is retained within the trust and it's used to support the plan, ongoing building reserves, and so on. So just to take a look at the first, the graphic there, if you put in dollars for 2019, then that money goes all the way through to and can be spent through to the end of 2020. And again, you've got a 6-month period in which to get your expenses in from the prior plan year. Likewise, if you've put money aside for the 2020 year this year, then you've got to the end of 2021 to spend that. We'll touch on this a little bit later, but I understand that dentists are not open, some practitioners are not open for business, but there are some services that we'll talk about in a little bit that you can use virtually. So I just wanted to point that out. The money is there for use until the end of the year. We're seeing some signs across the country of various communities and businesses opening back up slowly. So we're hopeful that that we don't run into a problem with losing money. And again, the government is quite sensitive to this issue. They know about it. They know that it's a problem for folks, and they don't want people to lose their money, frankly. So we'll see how this all works out. But I think we're still in a pretty good place. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Charlene. A question has come in. What is the website to access the healthcare spending account?
So that would be GroupNet, or sorry, I might need help with from Marjorie or Trevor on this. It's the Canada Life website where you go in to access. The website name is escaping me at the moment, but Canada Life holds that information. So if you can get into GroupNet for members, for plan members on the Canada Life website, you'll be able to track that information down.
gwl.greatwestlife.com, and they'll have to register to log into the GroupNet, and they'll be able to access their HSA balance. gwl.greatwestlife.com.
Thank you,
Trevor.
Trevor. Okay, moving on to the next question. Can timelines be extended to use annual maximums? Again, I think I'm going to go back to Charlene on this one.
Right. Thanks, Brian, for this question. Yeah, so this is, again, this is a very common question for anybody who's part of a group plan. And basically, the question here is that some services under your plan have annual plan dollar limits and time limits. Your plan is a calendar year plan year maximum for many of the expenses. And so you need to incur the expense in the calendar year for it to be paid out of this year's maximum. I do not foresee there being an ability to extend these maximums into next year. Insurer systems are set up such that they only are able to pay during the plan year. So I don't see this happening. So what I wanted to tell people, and which I mentioned on the earlier slide, is that there are many practitioners who are able to offer virtual services for some types of appointments and services. Many of you may have been video messaging with your doctors, certainly psychologists and psychotherapists and even physiotherapists, which kind of surprised me, but I've seen videos on that, are able to provide services online through services like we're talking like right now. So there are a number of different practitioners for whom Canada Life is accepting virtual service claims for. I would encourage members to explore that a bit more by calling Canada Life and finding out which service providers there are. We do have up until the end of this year, and I'm hopeful, like everyone else, that we're going to be able to start, going back into the world and receiving these services pretty soon. So thank you.
Okay, next question.
Hey, Brian, I got one here.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure, someone is asking about where to find their HSA balance on the GroupNet page. So you'll have to log in, and it'll be along the left-hand side. You'll see coverages and balances. Then you'll have the option to see the plan or the HSA account. They had a second question regarding if they have to submit documentation if they've already used the HSA Visa card. The answer is no. So if you've already used the HSA Visa card, that essentially is making that HSA claim for you. So you don't have to make an additional claim.
Thank you, Trevor. And another question with regards to what Charlene had just said. If we exceed the maximum for the year soon for therapy, can we transfer the unused funds in other paramedical categories for said virtual therapy? Charlene?
Actually, no. That is the way the paramedical practitioner plan is set up. Is that it's an overall dollar limit for any service that you that is covered that you want to use. If you haven't used up all of that amount during 2020, you cannot transfer any of it over into the following year.
Thank you. Next question. I upgraded this year. Can I get a refund for the upgrade costs? And this question has to do with the fact that some services are not available right now. Charlene, this is still your field.
Sure. So at the moment, the trustees are not considering providing refunds for upgrades. So there are a number of reasons why. First of all, the Canada Revenue Agency does not let us send money out of the trust. So once it's put into the trust, it can only be used to provide benefits. So we're actually unable to control that. The second thing is that there is still lots of time to use the coverage. And, even though, service providers, stopped providing services in mid-March, there was a period of time where we know folks were using these services. There's also a lot of expensive services that are still accessible. We've still got life insurance in place, for example. We've got critical conditions in place, and also drugs, which are a huge component of the plan costs, which are still currently available to members. So, and then also the plan is a national plan, and we fund it, and we set prices based on the cost of services across the country for all members. So again, at this time, the trustees are not considering providing a refund for upgrade costs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, actually stay there, Charlene, because the next question is for you as well.
Okay.
And then I think after this one, you'll be able to take a break, I hope.
All right.
COVID-19, is it covered by short-term disability?
Okay. Short answer, yes. So if anyone becomes ill as a result of COVID-19, it's treated as any other illness. And one of the things that happened right away when the virus came into our communities was that insurance companies, including Canada Life, decided that they would waive any waiting periods to cover folks who were struck with the virus. So what was happening was that, if you had symptoms that were consistent with COVID, and perhaps you've tested positive and you're unable to work, then yes, you are covered for the disability benefit. The one thing that we did want to mention here, though, is that if there was a mass quarantine lockdown like we've seen in some other countries, that would not initiate a disability claim. And then also just as a reminder, folks that are in level 2 and level 3 are the ones that are eligible and have that coverage as default coverage, are the only ones who are eligible for the short-term disability coverage. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, here's a related question that has come in on COVID-19
Sure.
and short-term disability. If a DGC member were to contract COVID-19 and they were ill for an extended period, beyond that for which short-term disability provides, could they be eligible for long-term disability type benefits? And that's the first part of the question. And I will answer that, is that our health plan we do not have long-term disability as part of our health plan. So unfortunately, the answer is no to that. But I think this member knows that, because he then says, beyond concerns of this current pandemic, is there any thought of incorporating the long-term disability benefits into our plan should a member become seriously ill or require major surgery, or otherwise be unable to work for a protracted period? And I'll certainly answer that question as well. And the answer is that, especially in good times, the trust is always looking for ways that we can upgrade the plan, that we can make the plan better. Long-term disability is something that we've looked at for reasons of spectacular costs involved in it. The trustees up to this point have decided that they would rather put our resources into other benefits. So, and of course, right now, we are certainly, unfortunately, not in any position to start be thinking about upgrading the plan and increasing our costs until we see some light at the end of this proverbial tunnel.
Brian, sorry, Brian, there was one more question that came up that maybe we'll answer around disability.
Okay.
And that is that someone asked how does the short-term disability plan integrate with the CERB benefit? And the question is, it doesn't. So if you're disabled and receiving short-term disability then you would not be eligible for CERB unless it was within the CERB framework of being able to earn up to $1,000 a month from another source. So it doesn't really integrate unless you are earning less than the CERB asks you to. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. A related question that came in, and there's a couple of parts to it. Just bear with me for a second. It's about the upgrading to family coverage and the fact that services aren't available. And after Charlene, you gave your response, the member asked, if you can't give it a refund, why not allocate some of that towards 2021? And I will be happy to answer that part of the question. And the answer is, we have to wait till the end of 2020. If services open up soon, hopefully, members will be able to use the services to the level that they had intended to use it before. These are but the question about that, about allocating some of it towards 2021 is something that we will certainly look at when we're starting to plan the next year's plan. So the final question in the general questions has to do with overage dependents. Will the trust extend coverage for overage dependent children? And I'm going to give that one to Todd Rapid from J&D Benefits. Todd, could you answer that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Brian, and good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to thank everyone who put the effort into making this happen. J&D has been open for business, and we're getting a lot of phone calls as the ones that were stated before, but another one that keeps on arising is individuals who have children who would reach the overage dependency, which is 21 for those not actively full-time students and 26 for those who are over that who are full-time students. And in a lot of these cases, the members may have booked some sort of dental treatment or other treatment for those children before they attain those ages. At this point in time, what I can report is that there would be no change to it. This is something that we are going to continue to monitor, but unfortunately, at this point in time, the rule will stand with the insurance companies. But if we get any change in direction, we will definitely notify everyone. Just want to remind you, though, that when this does reopen, you still have the ability, if they haven't reached those ages, to go out and get those services rendered. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Todd. So I am going to go now to the questions that we've been receiving during the meeting, and we'll try and get to all of them. And the first one I'm going to read out, because we've just been talking about COVID-19 and short-term disability. Who decides if you're eligible for short-term disability? Who decides if your symptoms are consistent with COVID-19? Charlene, why don't you just help us through with this one, and the steps of making an application for STD, short-term disability, sorry.
Sure. Yeah, so the trustees or the trust has contracted with Canada Life to provide adjudication services for the short-term disability plan, so basically the experts at Canada Life, I keep forgetting, at Canada Life are the folks who are assessing whether someone is ill or injured for any type of claim, so not just for COVID. I mean, basically, it's their claims adjudication experts that are assessing that and who will make the decision on whether benefits are payable.
Thank you. Just scrolling through the questions. Is there a way for the DGC to negotiate a higher coverable amount or percentage for services like psychologists and psychotherapists during this time? Having only 85% of maximum of $100 covered when these services often easily cost upward to $100 to $150 has meant having to reduce the amount of therapy some people are able to afford during this time. And unfortunately, the answer is that we're in the middle of a contract year, these amounts will not change, or for this year. But again, without trying to raise up any false hopes, at the end of this year, we're going to have to do a real rethink about some of these things, particularly how they relate to COVID-19, and make some decisions. So that's the best I can say at this point. Does anyone else on the panel see a question that they would like to answer?
Yeah, there's one question about the coverage for a dependent. If the daughter was in university this year, the coverage will go to August 31st. If they're not, if they were a full-time student at the start of the year, their coverage will end August 31st. If they're not a full-time student, starting September.
Thank you. And there's another related question about a dependent. Two members, a couple who both have coverage. One has level 1, the other one has level 2. They're asking if, since the level 2 spouse has short-term disability coverage, does the other member in level 1 have some as well? And the answer is no. Short-term disability is only for members, and it's not available for dependents. I'm just scrolling through more questions. Please, if any other people on the panel see something, please go ahead while I'm looking.
One question was about the primary source, about who to contact. Members can always contact DGC Benefits at dgc.ca. If it's a bit more complex, we'll transfer you to J&D Benefits, but we can actually handle most of the questions and be able to get back to you real quick.
Thank you. Can I just ask everyone else on the panel to mute their microphones when they're not talking, please? Thank you.
Brian?
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, there were a couple of follow-up questions. Just to clarify, the role that Canada Life plays in managing the short-term disability plan. Just judging from a couple of questions asking about who the expert is in this expert, I think it might be worth clarifying that, for example, on a diagnosis of COVID, it's your doctor that's going to diagnose COVID, right? And that Canada Life may require confirmation from your doctor, and that may be the case for other claims for short-term disability. So just to be clear that you're going to work with your doctor. In this case, the expert isn't someone at Canada Life who's going to examine you and do a treatment. You do that through your doctor, and that forms a portion of the documentation that may be required depending on the nature of the claim you're making. So your doctor is still your doctor, and the diagnosis will come from them.
Thank you, Dave. Here's one.
Brian, I do. Sorry, I just saw one here asking if CRA will, if it's a rule, if they can only put money in at time of re-enrollment, or if they could do it, I guess, currently. And the answer to that is CRA only allows the deposits on the January 1st re-enrollment date. They won't allow us to do midterm transfers from the dollar bank to healthcare spend account.
Thank you. A member is asking, is in a very unfortunate situation with their wife and child stranded in Africa, and their travel benefits end on June 1st because in our travel benefits, it's only good for 90 days. And is there any provision to extend it? Is there anything that can be done about that given the circumstances? I don't know if Todd, you want to take this, or Charlene?
It's Charlene. Sure, I will, Brian. Yeah, so I think this member should reach out to the DGC national staff, identify themselves, and the DGC will reach out to Canada Life on their behalf. Canada Life understands that there are a number of individuals who are still stranded outside the country, and they have expressed a willingness to be flexible in these situations as long as they know about them. So it's important that the member reach out so that the situation can be dealt with.
Thank you. And actually, I'm seeing who this member is, and you can actually go right to your counsel. Marie-Claude will be able to take care of that for you. Another question comes in and wanting to know what the primary source, where to go for to really understand how the H&W plan works for information. Trevor, you want to let this member know that?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I'll be happy to answer any questions directly at dgcbenefits.ca. Just send us a quick email. If it is going to be a short-term disability claim or anything a bit more complex, you can go straight to J&D Benefits. But we'll be able to answer about 90% of the questions just in the office.
Thank you. Thank you. And I've scrolled through all the questions, and I believe that we have answered them all. I did not answer all of them directly, but but all the other questions that I didn't bring up today have been answered in earlier questions. So I think I'm going to pass this back now to Tim to sort of finish up for us today. And just from my part, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I certainly hope that you found this seminar worthwhile, and certainly we would appreciate feedback from you on how we might be able to do this better in the future. So Tim.
Thanks, Brian. The the upshot as I sort of listen to the questions is that we will be in touch all year with you as a member in order to give you answers about basically the crisis-based changes that we hope to see in some of the rules in order to make for a more flexible plan this year and next. There are simply we have to have some weeks and months go by so that we can better understand what's happening in order to give you some of these answers. And Brian, I'm so pleased with the answers we were able to provide and the clarity we're able to provide. Make sure you note the address that you should write to. Start with us at the DGC for the most part, Trevor, Marjorie, and all the way across the country. You have excellent staff in every district council, people who really understand this and who know exactly where to send you. Please ask us for help navigating the system. The next topic that's going to be of huge interest to all of us as members is the return to work protocols that are currently being worked on very hard. It's a huge amount of work for all the stakeholders in the industry, how to return to work safely in this unknown and new environment. Just a terrific amount of work being done. The calculus in terms of the balance between needing to get to work and needing to do so safely is different for everyone. And so we're, as a union, coming to as many sort of positions as we can on this in order to make a recommendation and help all of our members make a personal decision about how and when to go back to work. And also, of course, to ensure that the workplace is as safe as it possibly can be in this crisis. So that's our next big topic. It originates right where you work in the district councils. And where National is going to be playing a role is in making sure that we're all sort of on the same page. And of course, in constant contact with Heritage, with the Canadian Labour Congress, and with all of our partners across the spectrum in the industry, but particularly our fellow union, our sister unions. So that's the big one, in addition to all of the more granular issues facing us through the health and welfare plan and the RSP. So we'll be back in touch. Please reach out to us. We'll be reaching out to you with more of these events to give you updates as the year goes by, as the months and weeks go by. Stay safe, and thank you very much for joining us. And thanks, Brian, and everyone again for all your help. And this is me leaving the meeting. Thank you.